on January 12th. If you could talk about these and beyond in China and Pakistan in the past, in the United States.
Of course. Yes, the earthquakes are happening all the time. They've been happening for the last several billion years on our planet, and there's no change in their frequency. It looks like large earthquakes are happening suddenly now, a kind of conspiracy effect. No, it's just a statistical fluctuation. We have to worry about earthquakes that actually occur near population centres. We don't need to worry about earthquakes that happen in the middle of the ocean. Nobody's there, just a few fish. So what really matters is where our populations are. And one of the most unexpected things is if you make a map of the world and plot down all the cities that you know about, the very largest of them, probably half of them, are located on plate boundaries. Plate boundaries is where earthquakes occur. Now, supposing you were coming in from a distant galaxy and you wanted to populate the planet, you would try to avoid those places. But we have grown up on this planet and we found that plate boundaries are in fact very desirable places to live. They're on the seashore. There's usually a good trading arrangement. Even inland, near mountain belts, which are plate boundaries, like the Himalaya, parts of Iran and so on. The cities are often located near sources of water, and these sources of water come out at range fronts. In other words, all the most desirable places on our planet appear to be populated by very, very large cities. Now, if you wind the clock back 150 years, you find that these were only villages. The population of the world has increased tenfold in the repeat time of most damaging earthquakes on our planet. And so we have set up a disaster waiting to happen in probably 100 cities with populations more than 1 million people. One could list these 100 cities, and probably 2 or 3 of these will be damaged in the next 2 or 3 decades. A completely unacceptable prediction. It should not be possible for us to say that we're going to lose another 500,000 people. 650,000 people have died from earthquakes just since 2000. That's up almost 4-fold since the previous 2 decades. And you could ask, well, why is this? Well, it's partly a statistical fluctuation in the locations of large earthquakes that are occurring, and it's partly a recurrence of these big earthquakes to cities that were former villages only 200 years ago. We know their history of earthquakes, and we know they will have a future of earthquakes. And so many of these cities, mostly in the developing nations, are slated for demolition by earthquakes. You know, it's a well-known phrase is that earthquakes don't kill people, buildings do. And we are now seeing that buildings are, in fact, weapons of mass destruction. And in fact, it's to me completely unacceptable that we should live in a world where you can shake the ground a little bit and the building will fall down. It's just nonsense. We know how to do it right. It's just that we haven't done it right.
How does that kind of building get enforced, Roger Bilham? How does that kind of building get enforced, the kind of building regulations you're talking about?
Building inspectors are designed to come and watch every stage of a building's assembly in the US. You can't put a building up in California or in Colorado even without someone watching over your shoulder at every step of the moment. You can't go to the next step until you've received your certificate. In a place like Karachi or Tehran, building codes are now being enforced, and that's something that's happening officially. However, in some parts of the world, it's possible to talk to your building inspector and say, why don't you come tomorrow after I poured the concrete? Here's a few $100s to look the other way. And you might think, well, how can anyone be so stupid as to assemble a building without sufficient strength? The answer is you can save money. And in the developing nations, there is this battle between what should be done and human nature, trying to either overtly make profits or covertly just to save money for
and also
for the builders.
Issue of poverty.
You know, very often these build. Yes, in Haiti, seismologists, my colleagues, told the Haitians that in fact large earthquakes were overdue, and they'd happened a few hundred years ago, and there was enough strain now developed at the plate boundary to repeat a sequence of events that happened in the 1700s. Well, this knowledge is like kind of dream on. There are so many problems that Haiti had that even if they'd started to act on retrofitting these buildings, it would have taken 2-3 decades, and there was no money for this. There are much more pressing issues.
Finally, are there man-made situations or phenomena that are increasing the number of earthquakes? Does anything human beings do on Earth have an effect on earthquakes, the number of earthquakes or their intensity?
Not really. I can't say that it doesn't happen at all. If you build a very large dam, you sometimes trigger an earthquake. But what we're watching is just the relentless movement of the plates, and what the Earth has in store for us are usually 100 magnitude 7 earthquakes a year. Our future disasters depend whether those earthquakes occur close to cities that are vulnerable to shaking or whether they occur away from these cities. And it's a hit or miss problem. But I've forecast that it is possible now to have something that has never happened in Earth's history, an earthquake killing perhaps 1 million people. And how can you make such a ridiculous prediction? The answer is that never before have we had such large populations at risk from earthquakes, cities of 12 million. And there are many cities like this, and several of them, like Istanbul and Tehran, have a history of damaging earthquakes, and we may well see the effects of corruption and bad building practices revealed only after these earthquakes have struck.
Finally, do you predict an earthquake in the United States anytime soon?
Well, we're very careful not to predict earthquakes. We tried that with a harmless earthquake in a field of cows at Parkfield a few years ago and failed miserably. What we can do, though, is forecast earthquakes, meaning that we know earthquakes will occur in something like a 30-year window. And on the San Andreas Fault, of course, there are a couple of large earthquakes overdue, one near Palm Springs. It might reach up into the LA region through Palmdale and so on. That earthquake is known to be ripe, sufficiently mature to happen any day. It may not happen for 100 years, but it's certainly something they're expecting. And of course, earthquake resistance is pretty good in LA. I mean, the houses are made of wood, and earthquake-resistant design prevails throughout. But there is a much larger earthquake that could occur, and that is from Cape Mendocino northwards through Oregon up to Washington State. We are expecting in this country a magnitude 9 earthquake. This again could occur now. It may not occur for 100 years, but it will. And when it does, it will test those building regulations that have been put into effect in places like Seattle. There's a large building stock that hasn't had the benefit of earthquake-resistant construction from the start. One can think of a lot of masonry buildings that will be damaged. There will also be a very large tsunami. And yeah, this is something that's definitely going to occur in our future or the next generation. And I think we are more or less ready for it. Certainly much better prepared than Haiti and as well prepared as Chile.
Roger Bilham, I want to thank you for being with us, Professor of Geology at the University of Colorado in Boulder, co-author with Susan Elizabeth Ho of After the Earthquakes, Elastic Rebound on an Urban Planet. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Back in a minute.